What up, what up, what's up? Look, True Techno Gamer back here, and this is a one video that I've been trying to do for a while. There's not a whole lot out there about this. So mainly the purpose of this video is I really want to call out the audio quality in the current generation. Not a lot of people are talking about it. PS5, Xbox Series S and X are delivering absolutely world-class audio and doing it like just executing on it well. And it's not being talked about. So, True Techno Gamer, technology, gaming, that's my thing. Y'all know I've been talking about home theater front a lot, gaming. This is honestly the best fusion of those, right? And I've been really excited to experience audio quality this generation, especially coming from previous generation where I was mostly a PS4 gamer. And honestly, the PS4 really dropped the ball in audio, where the audio quality was honestly worse than the PS3 generation before it. So Sony really took a lot of time and effort and energy into bringing up the audio quality for the PS5. And Microsoft has already been doing a lot of great things with audio, really going back to the Xbox One timeframe. So here we are. This is the best audio experience we have had in gaming to date. Let's discuss. All right, so let's get into it. First of all, let me just lay out what do we actually have, all right, with audio quality today. Why do I say that this is the best audio quality we have gotten? Well, there's several reasons. Legitimately, some of the best audio experiences you can get, period. We're talking over Blu-ray movies, streaming, TV, and then gaming, you can get in gaming today. If you really want to get the maximum immersive experience with 3D audio and Dolby Atmos and etc., playing a game that is natively supporting those technologies will blow your mind if you have the proper equipment, for sure. Absolutely. Now, beyond that, what are we getting? We're getting across both platforms, Xbox and PS3, we are getting 3D audio, right? And what is meant by 3D audio? The idea that, this is kind of like next generation surround sound, right? Surround sound previously used to be front, left, right, back, but in a 2D plane, kind of flat. The 3D part of it is the idea that, you get sound above you. You don't get sound below you because practically speaking, there really isn't a good way to put speakers below you and beneath your feet or something, right? But you still, can get sound above you, front, back, left, right. So you get it on a multi-dimensional plane. That's the idea of the 3D part. And the main delivery vehicle for that, if you guys have heard, is Dolby Atmos. Now, Dolby Atmos has been around since circa, 2020, 2012-ish, where it first debuted in cinemas, like movie cinemas, and then it really kind of took over the industry and it's pretty much everywhere, started trickling down to home theater receivers and processors and then sound bars and now televisions and, of course, even on your PC and your game console. So Dolby Atmos is the standard for 3D audio. So 3D audio and Dolby Atmos is the kind of latest and greatest, call it state of the art, okay? We are getting that now today in 2024 on both PS5 and on the Xbox Series platforms. Now, beyond that, Sony in particular has done a ton of work and really made audio a first-class citizen. I alluded to several of my videos previously. Sony has been marketing and messaging the PS5 experience with three key pillars. And not really focusing again on just graphics and 4K and blah, blah, blah. The three key pillars have been the SSD, right? The fast IO, fast loading, stuff like that, fast streaming. 3D audio has always been there front and center. And then the third pillar, I guess, would be the DualSense controller, right? So 3D audio has always been at the forefront. It was a whole section devoted to it in the infamous Road to PS5 talk that Mark Cerny gave. And basically, without going into, you could watch that video, of course, but without going into all the technical weeds, I want you guys to take away the key things here in terms of what you will be experiencing or what you are experiencing if you're playing your game on a PS5 right now or Xbox Series as well. So for PS5, the key takeaways that I immediately noticed when I got the system, I was ecstatic, right? I was just like, I remember playing the Astro Playroom, right? The built-in thing with the Astrobots, and it was immediately noticeable there. Now, of course, you guys know I have a pretty, high-end 11-channel 7.2.4 Dolby Atmos setup, full thing there, and I was able to get it and experience it right away. So one of the first things that, again, a lot of people don't talk about is just the sheer fidelity of the sound. So first of all, the sound is lossless. Okay, lossless would be something akin to like Dolby True HD or DTS:X. Master quality. The idea is that, again, it's equivalent bit to bit to the Studio Master. Sony in particular added a specialized audio chip in the PS5 that they call the Tempest Audio Engine. And the 3D audio platform that they use is called Tempest 3D. Now, Tempest Audio Engine is something that applies across the board to everything. This is not about, you don't have to alter your game in surround or 3D audio to get just the benefits of the Tempest Audio Engine. Essentially, what the Tempest Audio Engine is actually a repurposed AMD CU, compute unit from a GPU, right? And Mark Cerny mentioned that the goal here was to kind of have a hardware engine for sound, devoted to sound, that can deliver quality that was kind of similar to what we experienced in the PS3. He called that out. The PS3 was a audio beast. And then, ironically, Sony kind of went backwards a bit with the PS4. Now, the PS4 used a specialized AMD audio engine. It wasn't like specialized hardware, but it was basically like an audio technology that AMD had pioneered. And, they didn't have the level of hardware behind it to push the fidelity of the sound. Yes, you can get, obviously 5.1 sound. Technically, you can get 7.1 sound on PS4. But the actual quality, something about it, it sounded like it was compressed across everything. It sounded veiled. And if you had the equipment to bring it out, you'll notice. You're like, wow. There are some games that came out on PS3 and PS4. The PS4 version just didn't sound as dynamic, as lifelike, as immersive. It just did. And Sony knows that. Mark Cerny knows that. He noted that. So to come back with the PS5 and really, really go in and make it a first-class citizen is awesome. Now, the Tempest 3D audio engine for the PS5, what is that really about? Well, it's Sony's proprietary solution to deliver 3D audio. You might say, well, why didn't they use Dolby Atmos? There's a couple of reasons why, I guess, they didn't use Dolby Atmos, but probably the main, honestly, reason is more practical in that if you use Dolby Atmos, any hardware device that uses Dolby Atmos, they have to license it, which means they have to pay Dolby, right, to even have the technology on their platform. Xbox does this. That's why on the PC, and we'll go into a little bit more, but if you have, headphones, there are specialized headphones that are Dolby Atmos, certified, meaning that the hardware is built for Dolby Atmos and the hardware manufacturer actually pays Dolby the licensing fee to do that, right? If you want to get Dolby Atmos on Windows, you actually have to go, into download the Dolby Atmos. I think it's just the Dolby app or the Dolby Atmos app. There's an app on the Windows Store. And you have to download that and then pay a licensing fee in order to enable Dolby Atmos on your PC, okay? This is how it works. Now, if you have like a AV receiver or processor, you don't pay necessarily extra for that. It's basically included in the price of the device. But Denon and Marantz and Onkyo and, Anthem, whoever your receiver company is, Pioneer, they pay Dolby a licensing fee in order to get Dolby Atmos capability and certification in that device. So that's kind of how that works. Sony didn't want to do that. That was one primary thing, and there's probably some practical and financial aspects to that. The other reason, though, that Sony didn't want to do that, though, is because if you do that, you're limited to what devices actually support Dolby Atmos, right? There's a lot of TVs that don't support Dolby Atmos, right? Newer TVs, actually, a lot of them do come with Dolby Atmos support built in, but there's a lot of, legacy TVs that don't support Dolby Atmos. There's a lot of sound bars that don't support Dolby Atmos. And a lot of people may have, some kind of, stereo equipment or home theater equipment, maybe older, that don't support Dolby Atmos. So what Sony wanted to do and delivered on with the Tempest Audio Engine is to deliver 3D audio to everyone. low barrier entry, no cost. Right? So the key thing here, what I want to highlight about this generation of audio and why it's so great, first and foremost, is accessibility. Because for Tempest Audio, no matter if you're playing on a 1999 Sony Triniton TV, right? If you're playing on a soundbar from 2012, or if you're playing on the latest and greatest Dolby Atmos home theater, today, you actually can get and take advantage of Tempest Audio 3D. And because it's so universally supported and universally distributed, game developers, and also, by the way, the APIs and the tools to enable it are also really, really easy and straightforward, that developers have all incentive to take advantage of 3D audio, to actually build their games around 3D audio and binaural audio. This stuff is supported pretty much across the board, pretty much across every game in some way, and I'll get into that. And it's awesome. So Sony, 3D audio is simulated. There's a dedicated, if you go into the PlayStation 5 settings, you'll see it. 3D audio, you can specify. Headphones is first and foremost. Okay? Why is headphones first and foremost? Because that's the easiest thing for, to control, because it's closed. We know exactly where, your ears are. So the headphones are right here, left and right. It's easy. You don't have to worry about sound traveling in a room, bouncing off the walls, and have to worry about room modes and any of that stuff. Headphones is right on you, easy, good to go, right? You can control that. So headphones are the easiest thing to actually process. And if you listen to the road to PS5, Mark Cerny went in how much processing is involved in calculating accurate, realistic, and representative 3D audio effects for your ear when you put on headphones. And by the way, this works with any set of headphones. Everything from the cheapest Bluetooth earbuds to, something like the actual PlayStation Elite, headphones here. It'll work. And you get this, 3D sound effect. There's a lot of processing that's going on, even at the hardware level and at the system level. You actually have the ability to put in a profile of your ears. They have tests that you can do where you can determine how you hear the 3D effects, and it will actually calibrate to your ear based on those tests. And in fact, Sony actually has a beta, I think it's still beta, SDK or firmware that's going on right now. I'm in it, but I don't think it's actually public yet, where they expanded this. So you can actually do a much, much more extensive test to get a more accurate 3D profile for your ears. And when you play headphones or TV or your sound bar, right, or even your home theater receiver, it actually processes, using really, really sophisticated, HRTF functions, which is head-related transfer functions. This is math that is done to calculate how you will hear 3D sound based on your head and your ear profile. This is how sophisticated the 3D audio engine is on the PS5, right? It really goes to that level. And I'm telling you, if you try it, I don't know if you're into beta, but if you actually try it and put on some headphones, especially if you have high-end headphones, or there's a PlayStation certified headphones, obviously, but if you do have something like that, you will hear a difference, right? With using that profile, if you do the test versus not doing the test, obviously with just regular old headphones, you will hear a difference. It's really, really awesome. It's really awesome. So again, the fact that the sound is so advanced, it's so high quality, it's so high fidelity, but that is also so accessible. No matter what you have, you can take advantage of it. Super awesome, man. Now the Xbox side, they have Dolby Atmos support. Xbox actually has 3 different 3D audio, kind of sound engines that are supported. They have Dolby Atmos, they have DTS, and they have Windows Sonic, which is something that's developed by Microsoft, of course. Now, Windows Sonic is also available on the PC. Actually, all of that stuff is available on the PC. But Windows Sonic was initially available, made for like a PC thing. Now, they all kind of do similar things, right? They're all 3D sound. With both platforms, you get the ability to have 3D audio with headphones, 3D audio through your receiver in your home theater system. And again, with the Sony, you could actually get simulated 3D audio even just with a TV, even with just 2 speakers, even with any soundbar, et cetera, whether it supports Dolby Atmos or not. So kudos to Sony and Microsoft to deliver that stuff here now. Now, here's another interesting thing that has been coming up and somewhat discussed that's not very clear. When you think about Xbox versus PS5, like I said, there are some advantages on both sides, I guess, but ultimately, I think it's fair to say that Sony kind of went in and invested more from a hardware perspective and a system perspective in terms of being able to push audio quality further with the PS5. There's a lot of discussion. You can look on Reddit and look on forums where people have been saying like, man, I had an Xbox, I just got a PS5 now, and I'm playing the same game that I played there. And it sounds different on the PS5. It sounds a little better actually on the PS5, right? There's a lot of talk like that. And again, that goes back into that Tempest audio engine. The beautiful thing about the PS5 audio solution is that it's a dedicated hardware block, right? Meaning that it doesn't take any cycles away from the GPU or the CPU already on the system. And it's powerful, right? I mean, that audio block is actually powerful. We're talking hundreds and hundreds of 3D sound objects that can be processed in real time, right? And again, at a fidelity that is completely studio master quality. It's awesome, right? So I think that, and I've heard this myself, by the way, right? The overall fidelity, especially if you have a higher end system like I do, where you can discern a lot of those details, it does sound better than what you have heard on the Xbox Series or Xbox One with Dolby Atmos, sound coming out of there. I'm just saying, and people have said that, and people forget that, the underlying audio engine and the overall audio processing is just of really, really high quality on the PS5, right? If you listen to, an actual Tempest 3D, mastered game with, especially with the latest firmware with these headphones, I'm telling you, that effect is higher quality than what you will experience with headphones on PC or Xbox, right? If you have heard and done the test yourself, let me know in the comments. I really would appreciate it. But from my listening, it really is another step forward. Now again, not to say that the Xbox solution is bad or poor. Xbox has a dedicated sound chip as well to do some of that, but it just doesn't go as far as what the PS5 is doing in terms of offloading the CPU as well, right? So that gets back to the other thing. Now, what are you actually getting in terms of what games and how many games are supporting 3D audio? The beautiful thing here, and this is a little nuanced, all right, and this is kind of tricky, okay? There is an element to having a Dolby Atmos native supported game, meaning that the game is actually authored and mastered for Dolby Atmos, right? 3D objects are used, 3D processing is done and is encoded in 3D and ultimately decoded in 3D by, the Xbox or whatever your hardware is. Now, the list of games, even though Dolby Atmos has been around in gaming since, 2015-ish or somewhere around there, we're in 2024, that's 9 years or so roughly. The list of games that support native Atmos is still really small. We're talking probably on the order, depends on how you classify it, and I've seen lists that range from 50 games to, maybe a little bit over 100 games. Now, mind you, there's been thousands of games released in that time period, right? So the actual percentage of games is really small. And you got to ask yourself, well, why? Why is it so small, right? Now, on the PlayStation side, the list of native Tempest audio games are, mind you, Tempest is only 4 years old now, roughly, not even quite going on 4 years old, so it's a much smaller window. And the list of games that support it is roughly the same. It's in the same ballpark. We're talking, somewhere in the 50 to 100 range or so. Obviously, most Sony first-party games are really, really, going in. I'm telling you, if you listen to stuff like Returnal, GT7, Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut on PS5, oh my God, I'm playing that now. I mean, that game sounds amazing. I mean, if you have the Atmos set up with its headphones or a system, I'm telling you, you're hearing just the ambience, the fidelity, the detail. It just sounds so clear, so lifelike. You're hearing sounds all around you. It is really, really awesome. Similarly on the Xbox side, one of the first games to really do Dolby Atmos well was Gears 4 and Gears 5. If you have Gears 4 or Gears 5 on your Xbox and Dolby Atmos, telling you, you cannot go back. I mean, that was a super, super audio experience. It's across the board. There are a good number of games that take advantage of it, especially the big AAA ones. But the beauty of this, guys, is that it's not something that you only can experience with a select few games that, kind of went in and authored it. That's why I said it's really nuanced. And the way that this is actually distributed today, no matter what game you play, you will get, if on the Xbox, Dolby Atmos output. On the PS5 today, if you have a home theater receiver, you will get Dolby Atmos output as well, and I'll go into that in a second. Right? Or if you're watching on TV on a soundbar, you still will get, like I said, a Tempest 3D audio experience. But it just means that the game wasn't necessarily authored and mastered natively, right, for Atmos or for Tempest 3D. And there is somewhat of a difference there, right? You can think about the difference as discrete Dolby Digital back in the day versus Dolby Pro Logic Matrix sound, right? But honestly, it's not even quite that, because Dolby Pro Logic to me was a big step down from Dolby Digital. It really is nuanced. Now, if you're playing Gears 5, that's a native Dolby Atmos. And if you listen to it, you will hear the difference. You will hear the benefit. However, if you just play, I don't know, right? Just some other random game from the Xbox store, right? It will say Dolby Atmos coming, but it may not actually be a native Dolby Atmos mix. However, if you actually have a Dolby Atmos system with height channels, you might notice that you probably are still hearing sound from the height channels. How is that happening? Well, that is something that Dolby calls Dolby Surround, which is to say that Dolby Surround is a general overall processing algorithm that Dolby has that kind of comes with Dolby Atmos in general. Every Dolby Atmos decoder has Dolby Surround. And what it basically means is any signal that comes in, whether it's just a 2-channel left to right, whether it's an old school 5.1 or a 7.1, whatever comes in, Dolby Surround will take that. It will output that native signal, but it will add its Dolby Surround processing to simulate a full-on Atmos experience. Okay? Giving you some height channels. That's essentially what is happening. Even when you don't have a native mix and it says Dolby Atmos, implicitly, whatever channels aren't included in the input, the Atmos container will use Dolby Surround to fill in the gaps. So you will still get a full-on 11 channel, 13 channel, 16 channel, 16 channel, whatever it is. You will get the full Atmos experience. But if you hear a native mix in the likes of Gears 5 and Halo and Resident Evil Village and 4 Remake, like I said, you will hear the difference. It is just that much more precise, but it is still very, very good when it's just using the up conversion. Now, on the PS5 side, things are a little bit different. Like I said, Sony, for the longest time, had refused to license Dolby Atmos for PlayStation 4 and then later PlayStation 5. So even for the first 3 years of PlayStation 5, there was no Dolby Atmos for gaming. What that means in the result is if you had a full home theater setup for PlayStation 5, you would not get Dolby Atmos. But you would still get full sound and you would still hear some audio from your height channels if you had a Dolby Atmos processor that can put Dolby Surround on it. Now, outside of that, again, the Tempest audio magic, the overall processing, the fidelity of the sound, and even the precision of the surround, even the base 5.1 or 7.1 surround was still superior. It was still really, really high quality, noticeably higher quality than the PS4. I mean, like I said, I noticed that from day one. Playing Astro, playing the Black Ops Cold War game at the time it launched on the PS5, I was like, wow. Like, it sounded way better. That's the Tempest Audio Engine processing magic on top of that. But in terms of getting a full-on Tempest 3D Atmos-like experience natively, ironically, you could not get that on the PS5. If you had an actual Dolby Atmos system, you couldn't get an actual Dolby Atmos type experience natively until they finally released this firmware back in 2023 to enable Dolby Atmos for games on your processor. And the way that works is that essentially it takes the Tempest 3D audio that the PS5 system does, and it basically converts that to a Dolby Atmos compatible signal that can then come out the PS5 as Dolby Atmos and get sent to your processor. So essentially, the PS5 is literally doing this Tempest 3D audio conversion to a Dolby Atmos audio signal and then output to your receiver. Now, what you get there is not necessarily what it would be if it was just purely Dolby Atmos, because the overall chain in the beginning with the game developers are doing is not Dolby Atmos, right? They're using Sony tools and for Tempest and all this stuff. But ultimately, you get Dolby Atmos signal, which means if you have a home theater receiver, you can get a full-on discrete Dolby Atmos, experience if the game, is altered for that. The beauty of that, though, is that immediately when they released this firmware 3 years into the system, every game that had Tempest Audio 3D essentially had Dolby Atmos support, which was awesome. The games that support Tempest 3D audio natively, Spider-Man, the first-party stuff, GC7, like I said, Ghost of Tsushima, Returnal, Demon Soul, those type of games, Horizon, right? Those games in particular sound amazing on the PS5 in my Atmos system. All of that is to say, guys, hopefully you get it. If you have nice headphones, if you have a nice home theater system, or even just a nice sound bar, you have never gotten better sound quality in playing games than you will get on the PS5 or Xbox Series, right? And I will give the nod still overall because of the fact that they made their 3D audio so accessible on the PlayStation. It's available to everyone no matter what device you have, which is just awesome. It has dedicated processing. That means that it doesn't have to take resources away from the CPU and the GPU, which means from a game developer, there really is no reason not to do it. The tools are pretty mature and work really well, and it's really easy, honestly, to integrate. Now, the work that your sound team has to do to actually create the 3D sounds, that would be true for Tempest or Atmos or whatever. It gives developers more incentive to do that. We're seeing more 3D games released since PS5 came out than we did in the 9 years that Dolby Atmos was technically available, right, to game devs via Xbox, right? That says something. It's a lot easier and more accessible, but the quality is still there. Xbox, you have 3 different 3D audio sound formats. You have Atmos, DTS-X, and you have Windows Sonic, which will work with headphones for free. Okay, so there's no excuse not to experience the 3D sound, and there's a lot of games that have it, and even games that don't alter their games in it natively, you are still getting 3D sound experience no matter what device you're using. And if you have a home theater receiver, that Dolby Atmos container will still process your height channels and give you 3D audio experience. It is just simply the best audio we've ever had in gaming. Go ahead and try to play, Black Ops 6 Call of Duty on a high-end system right now on these platforms. You have to experience it if you haven't. I'm telling you, something of that nature, you have to experience it. It's awesome. So kudos to Sony. Kudos to Microsoft. If you are into home theater and audio like I am and you love gaming, this is the best fusion that we've ever seen of that. Games have never sounded better. You just have to experience it. So let me know what you think. If you're playing on whatever Xbox Series or PS5, how are you getting in your audio? Are you using headphones? Are you listening to it on a soundbar? Are you just using your TV speakers, or do you have a full-on Atmos system? How does it sound to you? Am I on, are you in agreement with me generally speaking, or am I just completely off base? Let me know. I want to hear it. I know what I've heard, but, I am anxious to hear what you guys have to say, of course. So that's all for now. True Techno Gamer, please like, subscribe. I'm trying to get to the 1,000 subscribers. I'm on my way. I'm almost there. Let's get there. Appreciate you. Till next time.